Hi, this is Jill Clifton of Landscape of Mothers. I wanted to continue today talking about my little series that's going on here about why parenting can feel so sort of extra hard, right? So one of the things that seems to be relatively true across my clients and myself is just some experience with emotionally immature adults. And what I mean by that is that that sometimes people grow up into being adults and continue to lack the ability to have a relationship that's mutual. So to be interested in another person and then receive something back. Emotionally immature people will often take that personally. A lot of people do that, but the hallmarks are sort of like they can take it personally. The conversation is usually centered on an emotionally immature person. That there's sort of a hijacking of all of the emotional awareness and everything, and that the primary experience is the emotionally immature person. Like, they can't imagine someone else's experience. They tend not to be very good at listening. They can only have a response that sort of originates inside of them. And when this is your parent, the message that the child gets is that they're not important, that they don't matter, that their job is to take care of the emotions and like well-being state of the adult in the room. And so a lot of these kids that grow up with emotionally immature parents will grow up and say, like, I feel like I parented my parents all of my life, or I feel like I had to be a parent to my teacher or grandmother or whoever took care of me, or something like that. So there's this way that a person's relational skills create a certain kind of environment for the person that they're relating to. And for emotionally immature people relate, it tends to be very like self-organized, self-centered, and it tends to require the other person to take care of the emotionally immature person. The other side of that is that when we are able to when we're able to cultivate the skills of listening, of being able to hear things sort of underneath what someone else is saying, when we cultivate empathy, when we cultivate being able to guess at somebody else's situation, then we have a lot more room for understanding, for communication, for requests to be made that don't feel like demands, and that don't feel as much like coercion, that they feel like there's an equal or at least a balanced sense of input into it. This is tricky for people who had emotionally immature parents or caregivers, because when they go to caregive, the simple neediness of the person in front of them can be really difficult to overcome or to deal with, right? And it can set off triggers really easily. So just the simple neediness, like for a person who has a ton of capacity around this, to have a needy child, which they inherently are, is a lot of work. For the person who has wounds around having immature parents and having always had to have been the caregiver and never having had the chance to be the child, never having had the chance to be carefree, that can be really triggery right off the bat. And can add, again, in the other videos I was saying how this adds to the mental and emotional load of parenthood. And so in considering the lineage that we came from, the childhood that we had, we can see why for certain people then parenting would feel like an awful lot of extra work, above and beyond how much work parenting already is, above and beyond the inherent intensity of caring for someone who has very little capability to care for themselves. So when that kind of harkens back to a childhood pattern where we were relatively unequipped to take care of our parents, we probably all did, to some degree or another, but we have so many more skills now, But when it harkens back to that time of just not having a lot of skills, sometimes, especially when we're really exhausted, we might revert back to some of the perceiving relationships in that sort of old way. So this is why it's important for us to learn to take care of ourselves, to update our nervous systems, to cultivate an inner mother, and to take care of ourselves around some of those old patterns and old wounds, so that we can be as present as we can to the new little people in front of us. Thanks. So if this feels true for you, then I'd recommend the Landscape of Mothers book if you don't have it yet, and also feel free to reach out or to go to the website if you want a personal conversation. I'm absolutely available for that. But there's also on my website, I'm starting to run some classes and workshops and things like that online. So if you want some connection and we're far apart or whatever, and you just want to start to think about these in different ways, then the website is the other good place to look. All right. Thanks so much for being here.